Yep, getting on the Blues here, guys. Hopefully they get a victory and I get to witness it live. Come on, Blues 1 to 12. Okay, Panthers fans, I want a genuine answer to this question. When is Nathan Cleary going to do something for me? What's going on, guys? Burgz back at it again for another week of tips and predictions here on the Casual Athlete. This week, we have round 20 up on the schedule, and we are back to our regular programming this week as we have 8 NRL games to look forward to. And I will be going through my tips in just a moment, guys. But before we do that, a reminder to like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week, and we can't do it without your guys' support. So hit that like button and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our latest content. Now, guys, let's have a little bit of a look back at the week that was. And we started with Origin on Wednesday night, and Longy and I were there in person. Thank you once again, SwiftX, to our sponsors for giving us the tickets. But the Blues managed to offer not much of anything, to tell you the truth. And I was really disappointed in what I was seeing right up until the final whistle. Yes, we stayed the whole game, and it just didn't get any better from about, I would say, 30 seconds into the game. I could kind of tell that this New South Wales side wasn't up for the fight, and yeah, they definitely showed it right till the final whistle. Congratulations to Queensland on winning the State of Origin series this year, something that would definitely got away from the Blues, and I think an independent review is required, and there's a few things that I would change, but we'll move on from the State of Origin game and get into the NRL games. Sharks getting the win, we tipped that one, and then we had the Storm getting the win. And I tell you what, guys, a lot of favourites put up this week, so it wasn't particularly interesting. So I'm going to go through it as quickly as I can. Roosters getting the win as well, 1 to 12. Tight margin, I thought, considering most of those games the Roosters have dominated. The Dragons made it pretty close, but Roosters ended up getting the win there. Then the Dogs, 13 plus. I thought my Cowboys were going to steal it at one point, but the Dogs, they hung on, and scores didn't change from halftime. A little bit of a dull affair up in North Queensland. The Tigers was the only NRL game we got wrong this week, guys. I know a lot of you saw in my video last week, I did tip the Eels, but I found out that most of the Panthers guys were going to be backing up, even though Cleary was coming off the bench. I did change that tip in the end, and unfortunately there was no last minute madness, so couldn't really let you guys know about that one. Maybe I'll put out an Instagram thing on our Instagram next time I decide to do something like that. And then the Broncos getting the victory at the end there. So, guys, 6 out of 8 tips correct in a week where a lot of people got 7 out of 8. And if you're a Queenslander, no doubt you tipped Queensland and you would have got 8 out of 8 tips correct. So congratulations to the people who definitely did that. There's a few people in tipping comps that did that with me in the tipping comp as well, and I have fallen down the tipping comp ladder quite significantly the last 5 weeks or so. But we press on, guys, and we move on to round 20 tips, and I am super excited. Let's go. All right, guys, our first game of NRL action for round 20 takes place at Suncorp Stadium, where we have the Dolphins taking on the North Queensland Cowboys. Now, my North Queensland Cowboys were impressive last week. It's probably the best defensive performance I've seen us put in all season. We were playing for each other. We just couldn't crack a very good Bulldogs side. I was a little bit disappointed in our attacking efforts, considering we are a really good attacking team, but again, the defensive effort is what I was there to see, and that is something that has not been present one iota this season. So going into this game against the Dolphins, I'm a little bit optimistic, considering the Dolphins didn't look good last week. They seem to struggle in attack without Cody Nikorima. I think people are underrating the value that Cody Nikorima actually brought to Isaiah Katoa's type of play. He likes to slow it up, then hit the gas, and Nikorima is a very quick, very acceleration type player. He's very quick off the mark. So one of the things that is great about the Dolphins attack is they can go slow to fast really quickly, and that is the utilization of Katoa, then the Nikorima added aspect. And I just don't think with him out of the team, they kind of have that in sync. And that is kind of the advantage here for the Cowboys. Plus, I would also say that the Dolphins are missing, I would say, their first choice forward pack. Like, it is essentially their whole forward pack is out at the moment. Flegler, Saifidi, probably your starting front rowers. Max Plath, your starting lock. Then Gilbert, Fini Fuiaki is also out, and then Kafusi as well. I mean, you could throw him into the mix. That is pretty much a starting forward pack, and it is all missing for the Dolphins. No doubt the Cowboys have their injuries as well. No John Bateman, no Talmalolo at the moment. McLean picked up an injury last week. No Sam McIntyre, who has actually been pretty good for us off the bench. So I expect this game to be pretty close, even though the Cowboys lost just over a month ago, 58-4 against the Dolphins. I'm going to be sneaky this week. I'm going to back the Cowboys to get a win here. I think that the Dolphins are just running out of steam a little bit. The injuries are really catching up with them. And the Cowboys, if they can maintain that sort of defensive effort again this week, I think they're going to be hard to stop. Let's go the Cowboys, 1-12. Second game of round 20 is at Shark Park, where we have the Sharks taking on the Roosters. Now, both of these teams getting very interesting wins last week. The Roosters did it the hard way against the Dragons, and you've got to say the Sharks, they finally stepped up, and so did their marquee player, Nico Hines, last week, as he scored a double, which kind of senses to me that maybe he's come to life a little bit. I think we're big fans of Nico Hines on this channel. We always want him to do well. I know Longy is a massive fan of Nico Hines, especially this year, just because it's become a bit of a running joke that he has to stick with him just because he's in his fantasy team. But in terms of this game, it's really interesting for me because the Sharks are at home. They don't really have too many injuries to speak of, aside from Kale Iro. And the Roosters were dodgy last week, and they have been a bit dodgy all season. They're going to have no Savala in this game, so Sandon Smith and Sam Walker. How does that combination look on paper? At the moment, it looks a little bit out of sync, you would have to say, considering they haven't played together this year at all. And Sandon Smith is very eager to prove himself so that other clubs can maybe put in a decent bid for him and he can get some good money as a starting 5'8" in this competition. I think he has the capacity to do it, but he needs the game time and being able to show these other clubs that he is the man. And with Sam Walker coming back into the side, I saw a lot of tentativeness from him last week. He didn't want to run the ball to the line. He was passing the ball very, very far before the line. Giving early ball to his outside men, not the worst decision in the world sometimes, but he was very sheepish in digging into the line, wanting to go anywhere near the defensive line, and I think the stats would back that up. In terms of the tip, I'm actually going to back the Sharks in this game. I think that they need to win this game more than the Roosters do. I know the Roosters are kind of dangling around the top 8 at the moment. They've got a hard run home here towards the end of the season. They have to play the Storm twice and Penrith. And it's just going to be a little bit desperate times for the Roosters coming up, but it is also desperate for the Sharks considering the amount of games that they did lose earlier in the season. So let's go the Sharks, 1-12. Our second Friday night game is the Panthers taking on the South Sydney Rabbitos. Now, earlier in the year, the Rabbitos did get a win against the Panthers, but I would say this is a vastly different team that they are playing this week compared to the one they played back on March 27. The Panthers, they are, I think, 6 in a row now at the moment, playing some phenomenal football in patches last week. I think with the guys coming back from Origin, getting those guys rested, Liam Martin, Dylan Edwards, and Brian To'o to get away with another win with those guys out is extremely important to their season. I really think if they keep pushing, they can snatch a top 4 spot, and that is a nightmare for anyone who finishes the Mine Premiers. I really worry about a team like the Raiders, who potentially would have to play the Panthers. I know the Raiders would be at home, but I think for an inexperienced side, especially in a top 4 scenario like the Raiders would be in, it would be a little bit dicey in terms of trying to close that game out. But we're going to be talking about the South Sydney Rabbitohs versus Penrith in this game. Rabbitohs, I think it's a little bit of a formality at the moment that the Rabbitohs are not playing anywhere near the kind of football that you need to play to be even competitive in this competition at the moment. I've backed them too many times and just been burnt over and over and over again. And they've had a couple of setbacks again in recent weeks. Brandon Smith is getting re-injured. We also don't have Cody Walker still. We're still waiting on Ewan Aitken to come back. Does he come back this week? Who knows? I'm going to go the Panthers here, and I think it won't really be that close. Let's go the Panthers, 13 plus. Let's move on to Super Saturday now with the Raiders taking on the Parramatta Eels at GIO Stadium in Canberra. And I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this game, as I do believe it'll be a little bit of a formality this week. I think the Canberra Raiders get a pretty easy win here. They're coming off the bye. Good time for them to get some of their guys a little bit more rested. Guys like Tarpany, Horsburgh, Hudson Young has been putting in work this year. That whole Raiders side really been putting in absolute work this year to be in the position they're in after 20 rounds. Absolutely outstanding. They could very well run away with the minor premiership here. I know Storm will be hot on their heels, but I do think that the Raiders will get there in the end. At least I hope they do. I don't want to see Storm win another minor premiership. Who wants that? That's kind of boring. But I do think this game on the result side will be a bit boring. Parramatta, they're not playing bad football. They don't give it to you easy. They've had a couple of unlucky breaks, I would say. They're getting reffed like a team that is in the bottom four at the moment. They're not really getting the rub of the green via the whistle at this point in time. And I think there were a couple of decisions in that Panthers game that probably could have gone their way, but unfortunately they didn't. And that's just the reality of it at the moment for the Parramatta Eels. Does Moses come back for this game? Could be very interesting in that regard. But if he's out, then I give him even less of a chance. I still think the Raiders will win, even though if he does play. But yeah, let's go the Raiders, 13 plus. The next game on Super Saturday is the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on the St George Illawarra Dragons, and gone are the days of vicious rivalry between these two teams, the Red V versus the Blue V. It is a little bit one-sided at this point in time. Canterbury shooting for their fifth win in a row against the Dragons, but you could say with the Bulldogs at this point in time that it is falling apart slightly. Is Galvin in the team? Is he not in the team? Is it a tactical decision to leave him out of the team? Or is it just blind stupidity? Or do they not want to disrupt what has gotten them into such a good position this year and just not sign him in the first place? Maybe that is a thought that they could have had a little bit earlier, but it's too late now. He's there, he's at the club, and he is possibly going to be their number 7 or number 6 for the next 5 to 6 years. I don't know whether they should sacrifice this season and just say, you know what, we're not going to win a comp this year, but we need to set him up for the future. So just play him in the halves. Or do they go with Sexton at halfback? And to be fair, I don't think Sexton is that great of a halfback. I think he's been extremely underrated by his own team this year, though, in the performances that he has been putting in. But overall, I do think he's rather limited as a playmaker. I don't know if they win the comp with Sexton in the halves anyway. So you may as well just throw caution into the wind and chuck Galvin in there and see what happens. In this game, I do think that they beat the Dragons. Unfortunately, I haven't spoken about the Dragons too much. They put in a pretty decent effort last week. I just don't know if they're ready to take on the defensive juggernaut that is the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. Sloan needs to be in the team full time. I don't know why he ever got dropped, but yeah, I think that's really their best point of attack at the moment, just going with Sloan down that right-hand side. So let's go the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs to win by 1-12. I think it'll be a bit closer than people think. Our final Super Saturday game is the Melbourne Storm taking on the Manly Seagulls down at Amy Park, and I do think the Storm get a win here, even though the last couple of weeks a little bit disjointed with guys coming back from Origin. Grant played pretty well last week. I would say that Hughes stepped up once again against the Knights, and Pappenhausen, though, are we expecting him to come back anytime soon? 2 weeks out with calf tightness. I don't know if it's calf tightness. I think there might be a little bit more to that injury than what the Storm are potentially letting on. But that's all speculation at this point in time. Manly, I have no idea how they are so close to the top 8 at this point in time. It feels like they've had a really poor season, but they're right there. They're right in it, in the fight for this top 8 at the moment. Do I think they'll get there? No, I just don't love the performances they've been putting in. Like, yes, they've been winning a couple of games here and there, but none of it really seems clinical, coherent. Like, it seems pretty luck based, if you get what I mean. Like, not saying that their whole game plan has been pure luck and they've been lucking their way to victories, but there's been a couple of lucky moments in their games that they are winning more than the opposition. And that's in their wins, to tell you the truth. But do I think that they're going to go down to Amy Park and beat the Storm? No. Let's go the Storm, 1-12. Just two games to go now, and they're both on Sunday. Our first game is a really interesting one for mine. The Tigers taking on the Titans. Now, the Tigers have burnt me a lot recently, to tell you the truth. I'm not impressed by what I've seen from the Tigers, especially when I've tipped them. I tipped them last week, but didn't tip them the week before that when they got a victory. I tipped them the week before that when they were looking good to get a victory, and they came out and did absolutely nothing against a Seagulls side that has been somewhat struggling this year. And then they beat the Roosters. So go figure there. For the Tigers, I think the Titans get a victory this week. I don't know what it is. I just feel like the Titans weren't necessarily out of that game against the Broncos. They just came up against a better side. And I don't think the Tigers are that good of a team. They couldn't really beat or take it to a Warriors team that is missing a ton of guys at the moment. And no doubt the Warriors stepped up and they were at home and all that. And the Warriors are great. Don't get me wrong. I love the Warriors, but I just really thought that the Tigers weren't offering much of anything. And, Luai's getting paid a lot of money, and they had to bring Dewey into like a second 5'8" type role to get any kind of attacking spark going. And does that tell you that Dewey should just be playing six to begin with, and maybe we should cut Luai out of the team? I'm starting to believe that. I'm starting to think that way. Whether it's the right move for the club, I don't know. But I do think Dewey is very potent in the halves. I've always been a fan of Dewey playing in the halves, but I just think the Titans get a victory this week. I know there's something about them. Um, I think that the Tigers, yes, they'll be at home, but yeah, I don't really care too much. Let's go Titans, 1-12. Knights versus Warriors is our last game of round 20, and a lot of news has come out about the Knights in the last couple of days, the last 48 hours or so. Kalen Ponga has gotten an agent for a rugby agent over in New Zealand. So there is possible talks that he may be thinking about a code switch. I feel like that's always been on his radar a little bit, and maybe that's because or why he hasn't really put in 100% or what I would call 100% effort into every single NRL game that he has played. I think he enjoys being the best player on a bad team and never really having too much responsibility to make the finals. If the team loses, it's never really on Kalen Ponga. It's always like, oh, well, he tried his hardest. Like, most of the time, I actually don't think that. I don't think that he tried his hardest to help the team win. This year, he's been particularly terrible. He's had a very ordinary year. I know that's a very scathing review of Kalen Ponga, but I'm going to move on to their coach. Their coach is being talked about getting sacked at the moment, which I think is 2 years too late for this this night side. Adam O'Brien is possibly my least favorite coach in the competition. I just think he's very full of himself. I feel like he thinks that what he knows is the right way to go about doing or coaching this team. He's taken a lot of things from other coaches, most notably Craig Bellamy, because he was an assistant at Melbourne. But him referring to himself as a premiership winning coach when he was like the assistant coach at Melbourne just is something that really grinds my gears and always has done. I think that they're going to have a massive payout for him, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't really like the noise about Newcastle going into this game. I like the Warriors here. Even though the Warriors are missing a few guys, they're definitely going to be down on troops. But I liked what I saw from Tanner Boyd last week. Harris DeVita stood up as well. James Harris is really coming into his own in that middle rotation there. And I just love what the Warriors are building this year, and hopefully they can make a deep finals run. So let's go the Warriors, 1-12. So guys, that's it for the video this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about my tips, and let me know your tips down in the comments section below. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out new content each and every week just for you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.